Based on a previous video which shows what is happening under the hood in OSPF when we enable this on the interface and try to build adjacency, let's break things up a little bit today and see in the debug how adjacency can be affected by certain parameters. I talked about 5 parameters that have to match between OSPF for them to become neighbors. They need to be on a common subnet, they need to have the same hello and dead interval timers, they need to be in the same area, and that area need to be in the same type, and authentication between them has to match. So let's break things apart. And there's one more actually. There's MTU checked during the Xstart stage. So let's just try to do it now. I'm gonna do this on, let's say, do debug IP OSPF adjacency. This is a very helpful debug. And do debug IP OSPF hello. I'll do this on both ends, but first I'll say no IP OSPF 1 area 0. I'll disable OSPF between them. So I broke it on R5 for just a moment, and we'll say do debug IP OSPF hello and adjacency. Two very helpful debugs to see what's going on if things don't match. So the first thing is they have to be on the common subnet. So if I change the address here, 10.1.45, let's say instead of 45 I'll put 46, and number 5 here with 255.255.255.0. So they are not on common subnet. So R4 is 45.4, this guy is 46.5. If I enable OSPF area 0, let's see what happens. Interface is going up. We'll begin to send packets. Let's disable OSPF here for a moment. Here it goes. Received packet from 10.1.45.4 area 00. Source is not on the same network. So on the other end, obviously, we'll see the same result. Let me bring back the previous state. So IP address will be 10.1.45.5. Correct. So they must be on the common subnet. Second thing is hello and dead interval. So if I say IP OSPF hello, by default it is 10 seconds. I'll change it to 5. If I do that, the router is going to calculate dead interval 4 times hello, which will be 20 seconds. And let's say IP OSPF 1 area 0. And now let's see what happens. Debug are still on. Okay. Let's see what happens. No. Okay, here we go. I received the packet. Dead received is 40 seconds from R4. Our configured is 20 seconds. Hello received is 10 seconds. Configured is 5 seconds. They don't match. There's no neighbor relationship. So obviously the interface is going down. No relationship. So hello and dead interval. So the same will be with dead interval. The difference is that if I do no IP OSPF hello, I'll change the dead interval, that it won't affect hello. Hello will be still every 10 seconds. So IP OSPF dead interval, let's say every 10 seconds, or maybe every 20 seconds. And IP OSPF 1 area 0. So hello and dead interval timers do have to match. So do show IP OSPF neighbor. There is no neighbor. I'll just say no IP OSPF 1 area 0 for now, because it's complaining. So dead received is 40, configured is 20. Hello received is 10, configured is 10 as well. So that's dead interval timer broke our relationship. We cannot become adjacent. Okay, so what's next? The next is obviously area type. If area type is, let's say maybe with area ID first. So we should be running OSPF area 0. If I say IP OSPF here, area 1, so let's see that. Here we go. It says, hey, received mismatch area ID. You should create a virtual link. We'll talk about virtual link at some point. They're not contiguous. mismatched area ID indicates that there's a problem with the area. Okay, what else? Area type. If I go for, and this is going to be a tricky one, let's enable this OSPF on router. Actually, here maybe first on R4. I will enable on the loopback. So network 4.4.4.4 area 0. So I'm also running OSPF. So at this point, if everything is good, I should be learning that network. So on R5 IP, let's make it right first. OSPF 1 area 0. So once we accomplish full state, do show IP root OSPF. Okay, we'll see shortly that we're learning the 4444/34. Ah, I didn't remove the timer. No IP OSPF dead interval. Now it's gonna work. Okay, cool. Loading down. So now we should see in the routing table IP routes. Actually, OSPF, route OSPF. We're learning 4444 right here. Now let's break it. Let's change the area type here. IP OSPF network type point to point. So I changed on R5 on the interface area ID, area type. So what's going to happen is this do show IP OSPF neighbor. I see the neighbor. On this one, we don't elect DRBDR in point to point, and that's a mismatch. We'll talk more about network types at some point as well. So what's the result? It looks like it's okay. It's full, right? Do show IP route OSPF though. 444 is gone. It won't accept it because there's a mismatch between the areas. So that one is a bit tricky. Anyway, so let's go ahead and remove that point to point. And finally, we need to have authentication. So if I enable authentication, so now all is good. IP OSPF authentication, and there's two authentication types, either authentication or authentication message digest. So authentication is simple authentication with simple password. So at this point, do show IP OSPF neighbor. We're good. But if I do IP OSPF authentication, let's say enter on this interface, do show IP OSPF interface E445. Now simple password is authentication is enabled on the interface, but not on the other ends. So I have a mismatched authentication type. Now I removed it, so it's gonna go back. And we're using type 1, which is simple password authentication. They don't match, obviously everything is broken. And last but not least, no IP OSPF 1 area 0. Let's remove OSPF from the interface for just a moment and change the MTU. During the X start stage, like I said in the previous video, there's MTU check performed. If they don't match, also the OSPF adjacency will be broken. So if I say IP MTU, let's say 1200 instead of 1500, the default, enable IP OSPF 1 area 0. Now I'm going to have a problem with the MTU check. So we enter the X start, do show IP OSPF neighbor. Look what is happening here. So we are stuck in exchange. And the reason, and it will never leave that. And the reason is because the neighbor has a smaller MTU size. If I bring this back, so it will always be basically exchange. Exchange. It won't get past that stage. So once I fix it, it'll go back to adjacent. No IP MTU. And at that point, loading done, we're full. So those 5 things, actually 6 in this particular situation, have to match in order for them to create a proper adjacency and exchange information.